Hello, everybody. Today we are continuing with the Debilitated Planets Masterclass, and I am talking about Saturn debilitation. Saturn gets debilitated in Aries. It's quite rare to have Saturn debilitated, but when it gets debilitated, it's debilitated for 2.5 years. So, therefore, you can see certain generations that have Saturn in debilitation. So, what to expect? What are the cancellations? So, I'm Komilla Sutton and continuing with Debilitated Planets Masterclass and talking about Saturn today. And I do remind you to please subscribe, press the bell notification, and thank you for your support. I'm continuing with the tutorials, masterclasses, as well as a number of transit videos. So I appreciate you. So talking about Saturn in debilitation, this is something that is quite rare, but when Saturn goes into Aries, it will do that once every 29 years or so. So then it stays there for 2.5 years. So it's like a full generation that has Saturn in Aries. So number of people around that time. So we can look back to the 40s, early 40s. Saturn was in Aries, so number of people that in the 40s. Then after that, it happened in the 70s, 69, 70, 71. Saturn was in Aries. After that, it was in 98 to 2000, Saturn was in Aries, and now it will be 2028 to 2030. So you see, there's a long period of Saturn in Aries, but it doesn't happen all the time. So then, so if you have Saturn in Aries, the basic information about the exact debilitation of Saturn is 20 degrees of Aries and 20 degrees of Libra as an exaltation. But Saturn has something rare happening. If you look at 20 degrees of Aries, the exact degree has Libra Pada. That means by if you have exactly debilitated Saturn, it is exalted in the Navamsha. And if you have an exactly exalted Saturn, it's debilitated in the Navamsha. That means that what the sages are telling us is that the debilitation of Saturn has got strength and the exaltation of Saturn has weakness. And what I feel is that Saturn is always saying that everything is equal. So we have to think about Saturn and equality, and it doesn't really matter where Saturn is in your chart. It is going to have a certain weakness connected with it. So it is important, and certain stresses. Even in strong Saturn, there will be stresses. Even in weak Saturn, there will be stresses. So when we look at Saturn in Aries, when you talk about Saturn debilitated, you say Saturn is debilitated in Aries. And the exact debilitation is 20 degrees Aries. The nakshatra there is Bharani nakshatra, and the pada is Libra pada. So that pada is exalted pada. But what I notice is that Aries, the whole sign of Aries, the rulership of the nakshatras, the devata of the nakshatras, are all connected to the sun. And sun and Saturn in the Puranic kathas and stories is always a difficult relationship, because according to the Puranas, sun is the father of Shani, but he rejects Shani because he is born out of the shadow wife. So Shani has always resented his father, the sun. And so in the nakshatras, if you look at the nakshatras of Aries, firstly, Aries is a fire sign. So Saturn feels very disturbed in the fire energy. And he can increase the fire, so he can increase anger and ego issues as well. But the first nakshatra of Aries is Ashwini, and the Devata is Ashwini Kumara, who are the sons of Surya. The Devata of Bharani, where Saturn is exactly debilitated, is Yama, and Lord Yama is the son of Surya. The last pada of Aries is in Kritika, and Kritika is ruled by the sun. So that means that each of the nakshatra devatas are also devatas that Saturn can feel resentful towards, some difficult energy, because those children are accepted children of Surya, and Saturn has always felt an outsider. He's also Surya's son, but he's always felt an outsider. So this leads to one of the aspects of Saturn in Aries that you can feel is that Saturn in Aries can sometimes be very angry. And Saturn's anger is not like Mars' anger, that I've said it and it's done, but it's an anger that is very resentful. It can be depressive. They hold in this thing, and they resent people in power, successful people, because they feel that they should have got it, but the others have got it. So this is an aspect, if you have Saturn in Aries, that you have to calm your anger issues down, and doing some remedies for it, mantra, japa, yoga, all those things, satsang, good company, just being conscious of this quality that Saturn in Aries can generate. The other important point of Saturn in Aries is that it's in a rush to do things. Saturn or Shani means slow, slower, slow. But when he's doing in Aries, he's the opposite. So he's rushing, doing everything. So you often see Saturn in Aries very quick, very fast to do things, to occupy themselves, and rushing from one place to the other. So slow down. Take time doing things, and sometimes you are just chasing your tail, so be conscious of that as well. And where Saturn rules, of course, Saturn, when a planet is debilitated, it affects the health accordingly. So Saturn in Aries, where Aries is in your chart, that area it can affect, but or what houses Saturn rules as well. But Saturn can give arthritis, rheumatoid stuff. It can give general. Saturn is Karaka for ill health. So sometimes intemperate behavior or anger issues can cause health. So you are always being conscious of that. If you get Saturn Dasha and your Saturn is in Aries, then it is important to recognize that it can bring some weakness in health, but also to do something about it. There can be some common sense remedies. You're looking after your health, taking care of your body. There's also the common sense remedies of staying calm and not giving into your resentment, because then it burns and it doesn't actually help you. It's not very useful. So be conscious of it. And then there may be other placements in the chart where Saturn is debilitated in the Navamsha. So if it is debilitated in the Navamsha, it's a hidden weakness, and also you would need to understand and address, and what houses it rules. It can be, needs to be worked at. So without looking at the chart, it's difficult to say, but that's another placement that you can be concerned about. Then cancellation of debilitation. Generally, when a planet is in Kendra houses, it brings some cancellation, and 90% of the time, a debilitated planet gets cancelled. Now, if Mars is exalted in your chart, Mars is in Aries in your chart, then Mars Saturn may be together, but it can bring a cancellation as well. So if the Mars is aspecting Aries, also it can give cancellation. But the problem with Mars and Saturn is, if they are Mars Saturn together, it's, even though there's cancellation, it's quite frustrating. But Mars in Capricorn would be quite good for Mars to give a cancellation to Saturn. So I think that, when ever we look at our chart and we see debilitated planets, we always need to have a plan of it. And then do check it out in Shadbala and in Ashtakavarga and in Vimshopak. What is the strength of the planet? Saturn may be pretty strong or very strong. And internally in the Vargas, it's strong. That means that you are just a Saturn in Aries type of personality without any weaknesses. So just looking at simple factor that Saturn is in Aries, don't think it is weak. It is just debilitated. And therefore, it's not acting according to its nature. Now, all of us can experience Saturn in Aries by transit. But as I said, it comes very rarely. And I've experienced Saturn in Aries 98 to 2000. In that, again, you have to see where it is in your chart, Aries, and what Ashtakavarga is giving there, whether the transit is going to be positive or negative. But world-wise, you see that sometimes people are trying to expand too quickly, rush to do things, and it can lead to later on difficulties that we have to be aware of. And of course, as people grow up, then that Saturn in Aries has an area to be addressed. But it's not a regular transit, and next time will be 2028 when Saturn goes into Aries. And so we don't have to be concerned about it right now, but we just have to be conscious of these energies, the ebb and flow of any energy. Thank you very much. Do remember to subscribe and appreciate it.